Welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk Dog Business, where we have the amazing business strategist, Lisa Johnson, talking all things passive income. So if you're thinking about starting an online course, get this one in your ears. So today we have the lovely Lisa Johnson with us, who is a business strategist, but we will let her introduce herself. So Lisa, would you like to tell our audience who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi. Well, first and foremost, I'm the mother of nearly teenage twins, and I'm somebody that loves travel. And then I also am a strategist. So I help businesses, usually online businesses, to make a lot of money in what they do, to make sure their business is profitable, mainly using passive and semi-passive income streams like courses, memberships, things like that. And I've been doing this now for nearly 8 years.
So you're kind of known as the queen of passive income, aren't you?
I think I used to be, yeah. Like that was my whole thing. I really believe in niching and having what's called sticky messaging. So a message that people remember you for. And so at the beginning, I could do lots of different things. But I thought if I stick to one thing, I can still help people with other things. But if I just say that I'm one thing, that will stick and it will enable me to become known for one thing. And so I chose passive income purely because it's what people wanted at the time. And it worked. So then suddenly I had this tag, the queen of passive income. And actually behind the scenes, I was helping people with all sorts of different businesses. But because of the passive income thing, I was able to speak on stages, write a book, all of these different things because I was known for one thing.
Yeah. And actually, although we're going to be talking to you a little bit more about that passive income, I would also like to talk about your secondary messaging that you talk about. So the way you introduced yourself there was a bit about you first and about your family. So we have this, it's a real struggle, I think, for people to share about themselves. Like they often think, or we often think, that people wouldn't want to hear your story. So can you just share a little bit about how that's been so important for you?
I think it's really important. I think one of the biggest things that we have to try not to forget when we're in business, and if you've ever come from a corporate background, it's really hard to forget, is that people actually buy from people that they like. Like we generally buy from people that we resonate with or have something in common with. And yet, as soon as we start our own businesses, we don't tell anyone what we're about or, our personal lives or what they might have in common with us. And so they can't resonate with us at all. And that's a really big mistake. So I always start off with something that's about me. And I believe in secondary messaging so much. I definitely know that I wouldn't have made over 20 million in the last few years if my secondary messaging wasn't talked about more than my primary messaging. Your primary messaging is generally what you do. We talk about who we help and how we help them. And that's great. But there are a lot of people doing anything now. There is near enough saturation in the market with everything. And so the reason people buy from anybody is to do with their secondary messaging. So my secondary messaging is that I am very much about integrity in this online world because I believe that there's quite a lot of unethical practices in the online world, and I call them out. And that ended up becoming organically my secondary messaging. I'm also an ambassador for an anti-bullying charity because I was bullied badly at school, but I was also bullied quite badly online when I became successful. And so that's another one of my secondary messaging. I'll get more people coming to me to buy my things who have been trolled online than people that haven't, because they know that I talk about that and I know strategies to deal with that, or people that have been in corporate and were bullied by a boss. And that's why they've started their own business. More people are likely to work with me knowing I understand that side of things. And I understand that they want to be ethical and they don't want to do things in a way that doesn't allow them to sleep at night. So that's what separates me from other people. So whatever your secondary messaging is, and it could be something completely nothing to do with your business. Maybe it's that you are really into the environment and you have this real passion for saving the planet. You are more likely to get people working with you because of that than what you do.
Yeah, it's a scary thing though, isn't it? Putting yourself out there. So for you to say that very first time I was bullied and how it affected you, like I feel like that's it's that first hurdle, isn't it? Yeah. So Yeah. What advice would you say to somebody then if they're hearing this and they're like, actually, I would like to be able to put myself out, but I don't know how to do it, and I've got that fear of judgment, and people might actually hate me saying it. What advice have you got for those people?
Think online. Our biggest fear that we've been taught to have is that we will be cancelled, that we will offend people and we will be cancelled. And actually, the only way to get over this, I've found, because I had that exact same fear. You know, in the first year of my business, I was bullied really badly online. It was the best thing that could have happened to me because I was so worried about it happening that I wasn't showing up. Once it happened, it was like, okay, it's going to happen anyway. So, you know, let's just get on with things and be who you really are rather than a fake version of yourself that you think everybody will like. Just be you. And then it doesn't really matter what happens. Even if you are the nicest person on earth, somebody's not going to like you. So you may as well just be you. And the only way I really, especially now that I'm more known and that people are, it sounds awful, but waiting for me to say something wrong, because that's what happens when people get successful. You know, tall poppy syndrome means that people root for you up until a certain point. They want you to do well. You know, I grew up in a council house background. I was 35,000 in debt when I was 40 years old. People were rooting for me to do well. But at some point I did too well. And I don't know what that point was, but I suspect it was in the millions. And then it changes. Oh, you've got too tall now, this poppy. We need to cut them down. And when that happens, people literally wait for you to say something so that they can cancel you. And so I've realized that the only way to live, and this has changed my whole life in the last 2 years, is to show up as if you are already cancelled. Because then nothing phases you. Because actually, you can't really be cancelled. These are just people's opinions. And there will be plenty of other people's opinions that might not be saying anything because they're too scared of being cancelled that agree with you. And they'll still buy from you. So I actually think we can be scared of it or we can face it head on. And when I started in the online world, I had a coach that said to me, oh, no one bullies you online. No one trolls online. It's just one of those things that people say, you'll be fine. And so I wasn't prepared for it. But I would have been fine if somebody said, when you get successful, you are likely to get some stick online. Here's what you do when that happens. Here's how you prepare for it. Here's how you get resilient. And then I would have been fine, but I didn't know that. So when it happened, I thought it was just me and I hit. Now, obviously, years in, I know that it happens to every successful person out there. Like, it was the beginning of this year. I had a huge wave of trolling mainstream. So I'm used to kind of trolling by peers, competitors, those kind of people. But I wasn't used to mainstream trolling. And I went viral on Mumsnet being trolled on that. And I wasn't used to that. And it was a proper like setback for me. I was like, oh, okay. I thought I dealt with everything, but I'm not sure I can deal with this. And then I spoke to some people that I know that were already successful. And they said, we're just going to come over and show you something. And they opened pages and pages of trolling about them on Mumsnet, on Tattle, on Reddit. And they were like, this happens to us all. You need to stop caring. And then I was fine because I was like, oh, okay, it's not just me. I think a lot of the time we worry there's something wrong with us because it might only be happening to us. But actually, if we all know in solidarity it's happening to us all, then it's much easier to ignore.
Yeah. I think there's a few things in that, isn't there? There's I'm certain it's in every industry, but we see it a lot in the dog industry where there are some very loud voices out there, as there is everywhere. And then you've got a good majority of people that are, you know, they're like the steady ones there. They're behind the scenes. They literally just want to get up, go to work, do their job, do it really awesome. And I think there's this potential for feeling like, well, I'm never, ever going to be heard against all the loudmouths that are out there.
But that's not true.
It's not true.
No, because I think people think the person that's loudest is making the most money. And that isn't true. What I've found is the person that's loudest is being heard the most. That doesn't mean anything. There's plenty of people that are introverts in online businesses, quietly doing their thing, making millions. Because it doesn't matter what your peers are saying. It doesn't matter what the industry says about you. This is why I've never had an award. I've been put forward for so many awards that I've turned down because it doesn't matter what your competitors are saying about you. And sometimes we feel it does, because we see, if you're 7 figures or 8 figures, you see a lot of 7 or 8 figure people online hanging out with other 7 or 8 figure people, and it feels like a club you want to be part of. But I realized quite quickly a few years ago, they don't matter. What matters is your clients. What matters is the people that are actually buying from you. And they don't see any of this other side of the world. They're just looking at you and how you can help them. So if we just concentrate on that, we can be as quiet as we like. We can show up in our way. Yeah, we do have to show up, but we can show up in our way. We don't have to be the loudest. We can do it how we want to do it, and you will still make a lot of money and you will still do really well. There's a lot of vanity marketing out there, and it's easy to get sucked in by vanity marketing of who has the biggest everything, and actually none of that matters.
Yeah, it's I'm literally like in the headspace at the moment of my previous self when I was just starting out on my dog training journey, and I'm like, oh, how am I even going to do this? And one thing I did actually want to talk to you today about it was thinking, because I think again in a lot of these, when you're in that solopreneur type of headspace and everything, a lot of businesses almost start out as like hobby businesses, don't they? Where it's a bit of a passion project and you've just fallen into it. And then it's like, oh shit, I've actually got to figure out how to run a business now and be successful with it. And for you, I know you mentioned that, you were pretty well known initially for that passive and semi-passive income space. And I do think that since the pandemic, that space particularly has just gone like whoosh, it's skyrocketed. And I suppose my question is, what are your thoughts on, so our audience typically like dog trainers, so very much the in-person bit.
Yeah.
Now we know that audience growth is absolutely a huge crucial part of actually having any kind of success in the online space. You've got to have that audience that you're nurturing constantly. But I know, and I think you had the same thought, didn't you? We both thought in the early days of our dog training business that, to enter that online space, if we just create a vault of all of these like how-to videos and then we'll just send it to our clients, but we're not really pushing anything, and then we just put a course out there and it's going to work. My gut feel is that thought is still very prevalent in the space at the moment.
Yeah, that's not going to work. I think sometimes we don't even realize the power of an audience, because especially a loyal audience, having an audience isn't just about how you can make money, how you can sell to them. It does help that, even if we have social media, people think of that as an audience. I don't think of that as an audience. That's footfall. It's your email list that matters. And that's the only thing that really matters. So all the other kind of things you're doing, whether it's a podcast like you guys, or, whether you are teaching in people's audiences or PR or social media, your whole aim of that is to get people onto your list from it, because no one owns your list but you. And everything else is borrowed land. So, even a podcast is borrowed land. Suddenly, if iTunes or Spotify disappeared, you don't have a podcast anymore. And same with social media. And so having this email list is really powerful, but not just to sell. But I've found that having a loyal audience has helped me with so much more than just selling. The reason that I had a #1 UK business podcast, the reason I had a Sunday Times bestseller is that audience. Not because they were the people buying from me, but they were cheerleading it. They wanted to help. They wanted me to go further. They were like, they had my back. And that's what having a loyal audience does. And I think people forget, and things like when we were talking about the trolling and the bullying, I kind of feel okay these days. If somebody trolls me in a Facebook group online, there will be someone in there that knows me that will shut it down pretty quickly. I have a loyal audience who respect what I do and who like me. And so they're then going to go in there and go, this isn't very fair. You've never even met her, those kind of things. And so it gets shut down quicker than it would if nobody was in there that I knew. And I think people forget the value of that. Like, it's not just about the selling to those people. That is important, but it goes way further.
Yeah, and I guess that's where that integrity comes back as well, isn't it? Because if you breed that really, not like you say, cheerleading, and people want you back and they want you to succeed, they will do everything they can to protect that, won't they? And I think it's really hard to get that across because people are generally just, it comes down to that fear of putting yourself out there and thinking that people won't want to hear anything other than come and buy what I've got to offer.
And actually, that's the least thing. That's the least thing you want to hear. They will buy your stuff, whether you tell them to or not, if you put everything else out there. Like, we've seen it with influencers. Like, that's the best way of explaining it. You look at someone that is an influencer online that maybe you've seen on a reality TV show or something like that. You are looking at their everyday life. You want to know what their behind the scenes is, what they're doing, who they're dating, all of that. If they then put something out there to buy, you're going to buy it because you think of them as your friend. Like, they're somebody that you like. And it's about that at the end of the day. And I get why people are scared of putting themselves out there, but it's really important that they do. Like, no one can, we always say people buy from people that they like. They can't know they like you unless you're putting yourself out there. And the real you, the authentic you. Not the version of you. I remember when had a few clients who worked in corporate for decades, and then they came online, and every time they did a live, they were like newsreaders. Like, suddenly they changed personalities to be this really polished person that spoke in a certain way, and there was no humor. And yet these were really funny people that people would buy from, had so much humor and were just so down to earth. Like, what are you doing? And they were like, I have to be professional. I'm like, that's not what online business is anymore. You can be professional and be you. You can be professional and have a kid hanging off you. You can be professional and make mistakes and show the real human side to you. And actually that realness, that rawness is what people really, really do want.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot because one of our values is we are unapologetically us. And when we first started doing this podcast, we had a conversation about how are we going to be on the podcast? Like, what
do we swear? And I was like, well, I am.
Yeah.
Fucked if I don't swear.
Yeah. And we were like, who should we be? And then we ended up like, we were in the car on the way up here going, let's just be us. Like, why would we not be us? And it was like the most, I don't know, we had to have the conversation to actually get out of our heads what we were both thinking.
But the fact you had that conversation means that there are loads of other people who are thinking they do have to be someone else. Yeah. And they're not having that conversation. So, and it's much harder to show up as somebody else, as a version of you that you think you should be. It's exhausting doing that day in, day out. Yeah. Whereas you showing up as you with all your flaws and everything that's good and everything that's bad is so much easier.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it does make it. My husband's actually going through a bit of this at the moment. So he's recently just gone self-employed and he's doing a grounds care maintenance thing. And sorry, Darren, that you're listening. I don't really understand what you're doing, but hey ho. And he's like, we were talking the other night and he was going, oh, I know it's in my head, but I feel like if I need to wear like a certain t-shirt because I haven't got like my branded t-shirts or anything done yet. So I need to wear like this certain top when I go out and I'm seeing certain people. He's just invested in a van because again, the mindset was like me rocking up to clear your garden out and do all the maintenance for the grounds. But if I rock up in like a car, that isn't professional. And I'm like, what's the difference? Because now you've just got like a massive clapped out old van. Like to me, I don't see the difference. But it's so interesting to see it like this close to home now because you can just see its mindset all the time and going, oh, I can't show up like this. I can't say this. And I think the dog industry at the moment, I am actually going to say it is a really toxic place at this current moment in time. There is a lot of in-house bitching with one another. And
I think that happens in all industries.
Yeah, it's horrible, isn't it? Like when you can see it happening, you can see it unfolding. And again, you can almost see like these different groups of people like formatting and just happening to be there. And then they're going, God, I don't want any part of it. And you can see that that's why the thought process is I'm just not going to put myself out there at all because I don't want any part of that. And I'm just going to sneak over here and tick along and just keep doing what I'm doing.
At the beginning, when I saw the nastiness, the dark side of the online world, especially in the coaching and strategy space, there's a lot of ruthlessness. There's a lot of lying. There's a lot of people making up how much they earn. Now with the onset of all the pyramid schemes that have come out, there's even more of that, people lying about that, traveling around the world and making all this money when actually they're not. They're told to post that as part of the pyramid scheme that they're involved in. I saw all of that in the first 6 months. And I had a coach at the time, and I said, I want no part of it. I don't want to be in this industry. I don't like what this industry is about. If I'd have known it was like this, I wouldn't have even started. And she said something that stayed with me, which is, you can get out of the industry now, go and do something else where you'll find the same thing happens, because it happens in all industries. Or you can do so much that people listen to you and you change that from the inside out and cause a ripple effect. And that made me stop and think, because an industry is only as good as the people in it. And so if everybody in an industry is unethical, until they see things, and that's usually not their fault, so I'm not judging them, because they're just seeing this is the way it's done. They're told to lie by their mentors. And so unless they see someone that's just as successful as those people doing things without any of the dodginess, how will they know what they can do and how will they change? And so my whole thing was, okay, well, I need to become a multimillionaire to show people that you can do that and not do anything unethical. And so that's what I did. And now that my legacy is causing that ripple effect, because I see people in Facebook groups turning away clients because they know there's somebody else that is better for them out there. And when I look back, I can see that their mentor was somebody who was mentored by somebody who was mentored by me. And that's gone down, that kind of the more ethical side of things, of, the right way to go about things. It's not just about money. Morals come over money always, is being trickled out there. And it might feel slow sometimes. And it definitely feels slow to me sometimes when I still see these pyramid schemes pop up. But I also see a lot more, when one of these pyramid schemes come up, I also see a lot more people writing on it saying, I think this is unethical. People wouldn't have shown up and done that before. So it's doing what I want it to do, even if it's slow. But I think we all have a choice of how we do things. And if we can see in our industry there are things that we don't like, it's on us to change them.
Yeah, we totally agree with this.
And it really comes down to that, like that mission and vision and everything, isn't it? It's like you really want to know why you're waking up every single day doing the thing that you do. And I loved it because when you were talking then, I could can you just feel like the power? And I think internally for us, because our mission and vision for Canine Business Academy is so huge that we want to be that ripple effect from within to massively change and improve everything. And that's why we get up every single day and show up and do what we do. And that's why that secondary messaging comes out a hell of a lot in everything. That's why we're showing up as we are all the time, because we're like, we've got to change it. It's not going to change if we just keep sitting on the sideline.
And it takes someone like you two to do that, because most people are just thinking, most people who have a business, they're thinking about the money. They're thinking about the money and they're thinking about themselves and how it affects them. Every now and again, you get somebody in business that wants more than that it's not really about the money. The money is a side venture of what will happen if they change an industry. It's a bigger picture. And that's scary when you first think like that, because it's like, who am I taking on here? Like, this is a massive thing that we're going to have to do, but it will take somebody to do it. And I'll tell you what, when you do start making a lot of money, like, you need more than that to get you up in the morning. You need a bigger purpose than that to carry on doing what you're doing. And we all face obstacles in business. I face obstacles every day in business. It takes more than making another few 100,000 now for me to want to face those obstacles. It has to be something bigger.
Yeah. Oh, gives me goosebumps.
I know. And you're right, it's that ripple effect from within, because this industry is unregulated, as a lot of industries are. And I think the thought process is, if we're regulated, then it will all be fine. And it's like, it's probably not going to make any difference.
No, I used to think it would. So I was one of those people that were all for regulation. And then I looked into regulation. And the problem with regulation is that it's regulated usually by people who have a massive conflict of interest because they have their own businesses in that industry. But also, anyone can wake up one day and decide they are the regulator of the industry. Yeah, we see that all the time. So a good example of this is, there were some coaches that were saying that they had a coaching qualification that you could do, and that it was regulated by, I can't remember what it was called, let's say like the coaching industry regulator of the UK. And so I was like, oh, that's amazing. Like it's a good it's regulated. So I then went and looked up the regulator, which no one ever does, and found that it was just owned by the same people. So they just made a regulator so that they could say they were regulated. Like the regulation is not going to solve all our problems. The only thing solving our problems is us deciding we want to do things differently.
Yeah. And we can't do that by ourselves. Hence why we created this podcast. Hence why we are trying so hard to get this message out and get so many different guests on this podcast from different perspectives. So like we have people like you from the business world, and obviously dog trainers and dog professionals in other kind of fields of the dog world. And it's trying to like find out opinion, first of all, like where does this all come from? How things are at the moment? How is that formed? Like what's the, how has that been built? And how can we start to almost like, we want to smash it down and rebuild the whole thing, but I'm not sure how extreme it can be. But almost that's what needs to happen, because
I think as well in your industry, I've had lots of dog businesses as clients, and the hardest bit that they have found is that opinions differ about how you should train, about all the different things to do with the healthcare of a dog as well. And the problem with that is that people feel they can't put those opinions out there if they're not mainstream, because then everyone gets offended or attacked, or, there's always going to be somebody with a different opinion. And actually that's in all industries. It doesn't matter what you're teaching or how you're helping, someone will believe that you're wrong. And we need to get to a point in our society in general where you can have that opinion and somebody else can think it's wrong, put that opinion across without it descending into what it descends into now when someone has a difference of opinion. I think we've lost the art of debate. We've lost the art of being able to disagree with each other, all because we're so fearful of being cancelled, or we're fearful of offending anybody, that we see all the time now people writing statements on their social media. If you are of this political persuasion, don't darken my door again. Or, if you believed that this person was right about this, get off my feed. We've got to stop that, because that's the way division is made. And actually, you can have a lot of different opinions in an industry. There's lots of different opinions in the dog business, and that's okay to have those differences of opinions. That's how we'll all get our ideal client who believe the things that we believe. But we have to be able to have those conversations without the hate that comes with it.
Yeah, and I think that is something that is, I don't even know if it's forgotten or if it's just not even registered, that those differences of opinions, like the public have a choice as well on who they want to work with. So we can all force our own opinions down somebody else's neck till the cows come home. But if that receiving person who you're trying to attract isn't interested in that, then they're not going to work with you.
Exactly.
So it doesn't
matter. No, and it's okay to disagree with people and still like them as people. But I do think we've lost that. I think social media has made that happen, like keyboard warriors, and realizing that you can say something and then block someone if you don't like what the other person says. I think it's made it a very difficult place to be, because you feel like you might say something and offend someone who doesn't agree with the same thing. So you end up not saying anything at all. But that's just as dangerous, because then there's no opinions out there and everything's an echo chamber. So we do need to put those opinions across. I see this in all the different spaces. I'm starting a podcast myself. So I had a podcast, which did really well. It became like a number one. Even when I closed it down, it was in the 0.1% of podcasts. But I realized that I needed a new type of podcast, and it was one where we disagree on, where we debate, and I'm doing it with my husband because we disagree on everything, to show that you can still love someone and disagree on nearly everything. Like that can happen. And I want to get people to realize that they can debate things again. They can disagree with each other and still love each other. And so my whole podcast, the new one, is all about that. Because if we do that and that has a ripple effect, there won't be these cliques. in the industry. There won't be unethical practices because people will dare to discuss them and think about other ways we can do things. And it will make all industries nicer to be in.
Yeah, it's that. When's that podcast coming out? I'm too excited by the thought of that.
End of September. It's really interesting because we did a kind of we did our first sort of trailer for it on the end of the last podcast I had and said, this is why we're changing. And we disagreed about, we were talking about some pretty heavy things. You know, we are going to talk about things that people don't dare go near in case they get cancelled, because it's time we did start talking about things again. And we had so many people write to us saying, I really want to say some of the things that you've said. I really want to say, I really want to start talking about, but I just don't dare do it because I think I'll lose business. We've got to stop thinking like that. Yeah. That, you know, business comes before everything, including opinions, because that's why the world will go to pot. You know, we need to be able to have conversations about things.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And that's it. And it goes back to that showing up as your authentic self again, doesn't it? Because if you are just you and there's no like an intentional bit of like animosity or any argumentative side, it's just like I'm just showing up. I'm just genuinely interested in having a conversation. I actually have this a lot in my personal life because I'm choosing to homeschool my two boys.
Yeah.
So they're 3 and Clay will be 5 in October. And we're going, no, we've decided we're going to try and do something a bit different and somehow juggle this world of business owners and world domination alongside some homeschooling bit. And well, I'm sure you can imagine like the backlash that I've had for that, especially like my sister's a school teacher as well. So she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, it's fine. It's like, can we have a conversation about it? And she's like, no, absolutely not. I'm not even going to entertain that thought process because you're wrong. I'm like, well, I don't think I'm wrong, but I also don't think that you're wrong. So
yeah, there is no wrong or right.
There are just
different perspectives and opinions on things, and everybody sees things through their own lens of what they've seen. A school teacher is obviously going to see things very differently to a business owner. Like we homeschooled for 6 months in 2022. There's no way I could do it. Like I believe in it, but no, I need my kids to be gone for several hours on each day. That's the only reason I couldn't homeschool. But we had the same. We had the backlash of, well, why are you doing it? Like, this is the wrong thing to do. But then you'll get the same backlash when you send your kids to school, because then all the business people that aren't are going, well, you know, they're not going to learn anything. This isn't going to teach them about business. It's going to ruin their lives. And you can't really win whatever you do. So you've got to do the things that are right for you. Yeah. And not for the strangers on the internet that we often care about their opinion of. You know, when people tell me I'm not showing up in my business because I'm worried about what Jane from Margate said about me on my ad last month, she said that I was a horrible person, even though she doesn't know me, so I'm not showing up anymore. We are literally choosing between having an amazing business that's going to support our family and friends and a stranger on the internet. When you put it like that, what are we doing? Like, we need to stop caring about what other people think and start living our one life that we get the way we want to live it.
Do you know, I'm so glad you've said that in that way, because that exactly says it, doesn't it? It so is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, but I understand where it comes from. But when you actually just take a step back and go, do we really care what that person thinks? How is that going to affect our life if they don't like it? It isn't. But it's such a confidence thing to be able to, it's that hurdle.
We know where it comes from. We're taught to be people pleasers from a really young age. And so we want everyone to like us. Like, we think it's really bad if someone doesn't like us. I remember being in the industry right at the beginning going, some people don't like that I'm talking about money. Like, some people really don't like that because they've been brought up being told that talking about money is vulgar. This is a very UK thing. It's not anywhere else, it appears. But in the UK, it's really bad to talk about money. And I would go, well, I'm not going to do it because people don't like me. And I want everyone to like me. And it took me some time to why do I want everyone to like me? Why? Where's that come from? Why does everyone have to like me? And why will it affect me in any way if 95% of people don't? It doesn't affect me at all. The 5% that do, buy from me. And you don't need more than that.
Yeah. And it comes back down to that niching and the fear around that niching, isn't it? Because it's like, but I'm saying no to somebody and they might need my help. And because obviously with dog training, it's a real, like, you know, people pull you in. It's like there's two things to worry about. There's the person's pain and then there's the dog, and you really want to help both. So when people are like, oh God, if I just focus on this type of person or this type of dog, and I think, again, it comes down to, like, there's a massive, we're talking about debate earlier, the methodology behind like reward-based trainers versus balanced trainers in the industry. And it's like, if I don't take that person on, they might go to that balanced trainer down the road who's going to mistreat that dog. And then I can't sleep at night knowing that that's going to happen. And I'm sorry, but you can't control the world. Like, if that owner, again, it comes down to choice. If that owner wants to go to that guy down the road or that woman down the road, they can go.
Yeah. Have you heard of Mel Robbins' let them kind of way of doing things?
Yeah.
I live by that. So it's like, if they want to go to someone else, let them. If they want to slate the way you're doing things, let them. Like, it doesn't affect you. We can let people do everything and not get involved. And that was a really hard lesson for me, because I'm opinionated. And so at the beginning, when people were lying about me online and, you know, coming up with all sorts of rumors and things, the one thing I wanted to do was defend myself.
Yeah.
Like, go back online and do a post and like, I've heard that this has been said about me and this isn't true because, and it's taken a while for me to go, well, let them. Does it matter if anyone thinks these things?
Yeah. And again, if you've got your hardcore fans, they will probably step in and do the defending for you anyway.
And even if you haven't, do you want to work with somebody that believes what other people say about you without checking it out yourself?
Yeah.
No. So they're not your ideal client anyway. And it all, once you start thinking like this, your nervous system really thanks you, because none of it really matters then. It's about you going out there, doing the thing that you're good at in the way and the methodology that you want to every day. And that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh. So here's another question then. So obviously you're really big in the online space and your clientele cover like multiple different industries. Do you think that there is an industry out there that cannot make the online space work, or it still kind of has to have a heavier balance in terms of that in-person side of it? So I'm specifically thinking dog training again. There is absolutely a place for the online, and we've seen it happen for the big companies that can get out to mass market. But these smaller solo business owners, it's like, yes, can it work? But as well as
it can work. But what I think is best, even for things that can work solely online, my business could be solely online. I don't think that's the best thing to do. People need connection anyway. I think the best businesses have a mix of both. Even businesses that you would traditionally think do well without any kind of online presence, let's say building, tradesmen, those kind of businesses, accountants, lawyers, they still do better if they understand the online world, because then they can use online marketing, social media. I think it's very difficult to have a business these days. People say I've got an offline business. There are no offline businesses because we're all using the marketing online. Now, nobody really goes and does a TV advert anymore. They'll do social media instead because it's easier and it's cheaper. So is there such a thing as an offline business at all now?
Yeah. Do you know what? When you were saying it like that, I was like, oh yeah, of course. But I suppose for a lot of people, it's that thought process of, oh, well, online to me maybe predominantly means like a course or a membership. Whereas in dog training, I suppose it's like, well, I need to get my hands on the dog or like see it a bit more. And yes, you can absolutely make it work through Zoom and there's lots of that. But like we're a big fan of that hybrid approach. But again, I do think that and I'm making a massive assumption, but it's just based on a little bit of research within these little Facebook groups and everything, that there is a thought process going on that, again, but with no audience and the few clients that we are seeing in person, that suddenly if we just flip it into an online course or membership, that's suddenly going to make that business sustainable.
I do think you can have a sustainable business just online. So I know lots of dog trainers that only work online, that never see a dog in real life. So I think it can work. I think that you might not, as a dog trainer, like it, Like, I'm presuming that the reason dog trainers are in business is because they want to be around the dog and they want to understand the dog. And so I think you'll want that in person, but it can work. I think all businesses can. Like, look at PTs. People said for ages, personal training, you need to be with the person. You need to be able to see what they're doing. And now nearly all personal training is online. I think it is all going that way. Should it all go that way? That's a different question.
Yeah. Like, yeah. That's it. And you kind of lose that connection bit and that whole side of being a human where you do actually want to speak to people and have that connection in the relationship.
Because it's important. You know, we're never going to make as much money filling a room of 200 people than we are being able to do a one-day course online with 1,000 people. But it's important that we see people in real life. It's important that we have that connection for business and for just being human.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I just want to ask you about the specific deliverability of a course as well, because I think quite common, and we've had this thought as well, about creating something where there's like a vault or a bank of videos, and it may be that you can just access all of those videos and pick and choose which ones, or it could be a logical order that you could have to go through, like a drip feed. But without... So there's online and there's in person, but online can be segmented into, this is online and we can see you and we can hear you. And then there's we can just access those things and actually don't have the ability to speak to a person. So like if you were to create, I know because we've done lots of your courses and we're in your membership and all of that, but there's more to it than just a bank of information and then you're...
It can't be just that, because the problem is people don't buy courses for the information. You can get all information for free. There is no information that you can't get for free if you could be bothered to look for it. That isn't what people buy courses for. They buy courses because humans know they won't do things unless someone's supporting them to do it. So it's the support, it's the accountability, it's having a group of people, it's doing things in a step-by-step way, it's trusting that the person that is teaching you to do things is somebody that you can learn from, is somebody that you trust. All of that is why people buy into online things. It's very rarely just about information alone. And we can see this by, you know, if you've ever done my Race to Recurring Revenue challenge, that's a free challenge telling you how to make passive income. And I pretty much tell you exactly what to do in that challenge. Some people go away and they have 6-figure businesses just from the free challenge because they'll go and implement. 99.9% of people will not implement what I tell them to do in that challenge until they pay me money to come into my one-to-many program. Because when you pay attention, you've got skin in the game, you're more likely to then do the things that are hard that the person is telling you to do. Whereas if you've just done a free challenge, the value isn't there. And so you're not going to do it anyway. And people know that. They know they need to put money. It's why people pay. People know that if they want to get thinner, they need to eat less and exercise more. Everyone knows that, right? We pay a personal trainer to tell us to do that because we know if we paid for it, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
It's mad how the human brain works. Isn't it?
It is
ridiculous.
Because actually, like, if anyone listens to this podcast from, like, what are we, about 35 episodes in?
Yeah.
Like, all the information that we work with people on a one-to-one basis on our coaching program is in this podcast. So as you say, 99% of people aren't going to be able to take that information away and implement it in the right order, doing all the things properly. Whereas there will be that like 1% or even less that will just go, do you know what? I'm going to try and create something off the back of listening to you and it's inspired me. Or we get people who say, I've tried to do it. You've really inspired me to do it, but now I feel like I need to work with you to get everything really refined and get it right. And we're like, yay, that's kind of what
works.
Yeah.
And that's how it should work. Because if we concentrate on something for a short period of time, we are more likely to grow it. So yes, we can think about having a dog business for a long period of time, and we can every now and again put something in place and have a think about what the brand would be and all of these things. But when you're working with somebody on it, you have the support. So you do all of those things in a short space of time. It's why as a strategist, people come to me, they know what to do. Everyone knows what to do to grow their business generally. They come to me because they're not doing it. And if you have somebody that's going to make you do it, you do it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's a lot about accountability, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, having that constant support.
And I think it's
I-
nice because it goes back round to that. When you know your purpose and what you're doing, that comes across in that messaging bit, so you know exactly how you're going to show up. Whereas I think there is a big belief that everything has to be behind a paywall. Like your knowledge has to be behind that paywall, instead of actually just showing up and going, well, here it is. Like, this is literally what I did. This is what I do. And I'm here to support you. And I'm here to give you that value. And I'm just thinking of like some of these louder voices in the dog world at the moment. It's like that's why they're getting the traction that they are, because they're showing up and they're giving so much away. Whereas a good majority is going, and I'll hold my hand up there. I was part of that good majority in the early phases of my business. I was thinking, oh God, well, if I tell you how to do it, then why are you going to pay me to do it? Makes no
Everyone
sense.
thinks that, and you can see why. But actually, the more value you give, the more likely people are going to want your support and work with you. So the more you can give away, the better.
Yeah, it's a big one for people to get over.
Yeah,
Well, I think another big one for people to get over in your industry is that people have generally started their dog business because they truly want to help. They really care. And they want to help these owners because they know that they know what to do, and they know they want to help them. And we see a lot of people not charging properly because they feel they shouldn't, because they just want to help. And it's a really big thing for people in any kind of pet industry to realize that helping people and making a lot of money is not mutually exclusive. You can have both. And for some reason, it's the same with people that help people with like illnesses or anything like that. For some reason, people think that it's wrong to charge, and they don't really know why they think that, but they feel like they should help for free. Why do we help? Why should we? Like, where's that come from? And it's just about really understanding your beliefs around things like that, because, people who do any job, whether you're a doctor, you're not doing it for free ever. You still want to help people.
I'm so glad you brought this
Have
up.
me. I'm like, yes.
So I am definitely that person that's similar to you. Like, I love talking about money. I think it's something that is not a dirty thing. And if anything, the more the more money we as the business earn, the more I can look after my family, the more people I can help, because I can get my message out wider. And because for us, like, in fact, we literally had an email from the accountant this morning going like, oh, and because of all the reinvestment you've done in your business this year, like, you're at a loss. And we're like, yeah, we know, because we reinvested everything back in. So, but for us, it's like, we know that by making more money, like, we're actually helping more people, because we can get that message out far and wide. And then that links it back into the whole reason that we're doing it every day.
The more money you make, the more people you can help for free.
Yeah.
And that's what I think people forget. So there's loads of people that I get to help that would never be able to afford me for business help. But I get to do that because I'm making money over here on the people that can afford it. Same with charities. I get to help my favorite causes because I'm making money over here. I think people just need to realize the more money you have means the more you can do, the more you can help.
Yeah, and it's flipping the order of it, isn't it? Because people do the free thing first, then struggle to even like survive and make ends meet. And then they go, oh, and I can't charge now because I've helped people for free. And, and it becomes, you spread yourself so thinly. And there's a lot of people leaving this industry because of that burnout. And I know other industries go through the same thing, but it's that burnout, it's that overwhelm. Like, I don't know how to do the things, and I'm trying to help too many people. And also it's taking on the emotional burden. This is something really common as well, because again, it comes down to, it's not just the person you're helping, it's the dog, and you're taking both of those like problems on. So
you need to be paid for that emotional burden.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that affects you and your life, and you need to put boundaries in place as well. That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, we have to look after ourselves first. Like, if you look at any kind of psychological trainings, whether it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs or any of the other things, the base layer is yourself, and you'll never be able to help others unless you're helping yourself. So we need to charge properly first, then we can help more people.
I want to get you in for another episode, I think, just on that.
Yeah, easily. We could talk about that for the whole episode.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you ever so much for joining us, Lisa. I am conscious that you need to go and have a tooth removed now.
Yeah, I don't want to do it.
But before you go, we've got one more question for you. Who do you know that now you know all about us and what we're trying to achieve with our big mission? Who do you know that could come onto our podcast and help spread that message?
I think who would be really good for your listeners would be Danny Wallace, if you haven't had her.
We have her coming up.
She's coming on in the next few months.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I've seen for dog businesses is that one of the best ways you guys can get out there is to be on stages and talk about your methodologies and the things you believe that you should be doing to help dogs. And Danny is amazing at helping people use their voices to do that.
Yeah. We can't wait to have Danny on.
No,
We love her.
Awesome. Yeah, I think she's in November. So that'll be cool.
Awesome. Okay.
Amazing.
If people want to find out more about you and your new podcast that's coming up, how can they do that?
The easiest way, I'm on Instagram. I answer my own Instagram. So if you come over to Lisa Johnson Strategist, I'm over there. And I always have a load of free business tools available on my website, which is thatstrategyco.com.
Awesome.
Amazing. Oh, thank you ever so much again, Lisa, for joining us. It's been lovely having you.
Oh, thanks for having me.